Okay, so we've gone over what a tween is. We're now introduced to this playhead. Hopefully at this point you see your green ball moving from bottom left to top right. A quick aside, please do as I do in these exercises. You're going to be graded on sort of completing these as I sort of state them. Once you get to your projects, we're going to creatively loosen the reins in terms of what you can do, and it's going to be up to you what you do. But please do these as stated. Don't add anything, don't take anything out. Please do these as stated. You'll be sort of graded on these as exercises, and they're what I call kind of easy money, just as long as you sort of stay on top of them from week to week. So I am now at step 9 under the part 2, creating the tween. And at this point I want to, since I've done some work, I want to save this file. And we're going to sort of talk about saving the file and then sort of testing the file so that you can hand this stuff in. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I have a little animation folder. And I'm going to save this. I've already actually done it, but I'm sort of recreating it. I'm going to save this as your first name, last name, _ motion tween. Okay. It says choose animate document from the file format below. That's right here. And you'll see that it says .fla. Just like any other sort of file, like a Microsoft Word file or a Photoshop file, you don't type in that sort of little appendage. You don't type in .fla. You can sort of see mine right here. It adds the .fla to it. So don't add .fla and don't add .swf once we get to sort of these Swift files. These will sort of be added to your file for you. So I've named this. I have very sort of strict naming conventions. This allows me to grade much easier. So I, generally speaking, need your first name, last name, _ and then whatever that exercise is. This will be motion tween now. It'll be shape tween on the next one. Your projects will be project 1, project 2, etc. Please follow these naming conventions. They allow me to sort of keep track of who you are and if you've handed your stuff in. So I've chose Save As. I've named that file. I've chosen the .fla. So I'm going to hit Save. Mine will replace that. And at this point, let's do this step 12. It says choose Control Test Movie and Animate. And this will create a file called your first name, last name, _ motion tween.swif in the same folder of your original file. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to go Control Test Movie and Animate. And we get this separate little file. A couple things to notice about this. One, it just plays over and over and over again. It'll drive you a little crazy. But up at the top, you're going to see your first name, not mine, your first name and last name, _ motion tween, and you'll see .swif. Now, what happens here is Animate takes a file, this flash file, which is kind of the FLA file, which is kind of the master file that contains all the sort of editable information, and it creates this compact, just sort of smaller version, okay? And that's called a Swift file, or SWF. These are the files you hand in. Rarely, almost never, will you be handing in a .fla file. Okay, this is the file that just shows me your work. I don't need to see how your timeline worked, etc., all that stuff. The only reason you would give me your .fla file, occasionally I'll ask for it because I want to sort of see how you did something, or if you're having a problem. If during the week you're working on an exercise or a project and you say, hey Dave, I really need help, I don't understand why this or that is happening, I will need your FLA file. I won't be able to sort of deduce, looking at your Swift file, how things are set up and how it works. Now, quickly, and I'm going to open up my animation folder. Earlier, you just saw this David Luke _ motion tween.fla. Now we have this file. You'll see that it was created when I sort of control test that movie. I'm going to say it again. These are the files you hand in. .swf. At the end, you'll see it, that it says hand in the completed Swift in the week 2 folder. Okay. If we double click on this, it'll open this up, it'll play it, and we get to sort of see whether we've done this thing correctly or not. So that's the little aside between the difference between the .fla, which you'll see right here, and the Swifts, which are created when you test those movies. Okay. Now it says once you have tested. I'm on step 13. Once you have tested your file and know the green ball works, create a similar animation with a new symbol called red ball and animate that symbol from bottom right to top left. And it says see video. And I'm going to go over a couple of things here. So let's repeat the steps that sort of created our green ball symbol. So I'm going to go to Insert, New Symbol. And this isn't in the step-by-step, but you're basically repeating. I'm going to go red ball. I want it to be a graphic. I'm going to choose my oval tool. I'm going to choose a shade of red, and I'm going to draw a red ball. Okay, I'm going to position it. This is basically repeating the steps that are detailed in creating the graphic at the top of the step-by-step. Okay, I'm going to pop over to my scene. And now you'll see in my library I have two symbols. One's called green ball and one's called red ball. When I click on that, I sort of see, yep, there's a green ball and there's a red ball. Now, step 14 says create a new layer. Use this layer for the red ball animation. Repeat all the steps to make the graphic. We already did that, as well as animating it. The only added part here is a new layer. Now, the concept up here in the timeline is that this layer here is for the green ball. Okay. If you've ever worked with Photoshop, you know Photoshop has layers. If you've never worked with Photoshop, this concept might be new. The idea is that we separate graphics and their sort of animated versions of them on the stage in these layers. We don't want to have too much stuff going on this one layer. It'll be difficult to edit later. It'll be difficult to sort of change later. It'll be difficult to take something out and put something in. So I really want to separate these things. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to hit this new layer. This is the only new part. Now I'm going to basically repeat the steps that I did to animate this. So I'm going to grab my red ball. I'm going to put it, and it states that we want this to animate from bottom right to top left. So I'm going to put it here. You'll note up here in the timeline that we've already extended the whole movie out to 60 frames. So I don't need to sort of add any frames up to this frame 60. The only thing I need to do is go to Insert Timeline. Oh, sorry, Insert Motion Tween. There I get the blue for the Motion Tween. Now I need to go up to frame 60, and I need to move the red ball up to the top left. Okay, I'm repeating that the sort of step-by-step that got our green ball from point A to point B. One quick thing, and then we'll sort of test this Swift to make sure it works. You'll note as these cross, the red ball is on top of the green ball. I can grab these layers and I can change that. Okay, that's the beauty of having multiple layers, is we have that flexibility. I'll keep that red ball on top, but I just want to introduce that idea that one is on top of the other. Okay, over here on the top left where our name of our file is, davidluke_motiontween.fla, you'll see a tiny little asterisk. It's probably going to be easier to see on your file. That means the file hasn't been saved since we basically made changes. I'm going to save the file. That asterisk will go away. I need to make sure I save that before I test the movie. And now I see this. So for your Motion Tween exercise, you should be handing me a file that looks exactly like this. Okay. If your green ball and red ball are slightly smaller, slightly bigger, not a huge deal, but I want it to look like this. I want the positioning to look like this, and I want the tweens to look like this and last over those 60 frames. Next up is going to be the shape tween, which is going to be likely one video because it's a totally different concept, but a little simpler. Email me with any questions on Motion Tween, and we should go on to shape tween now.